Welcome to another episode of Politics Unfiltered. Thank you for tuning in week after week. To everyone who's subscribed to the podcast, who has liked, who has shared it. Thank you. If you're watching this podcast on YouTube, make sure you leave a comment back to the folks down in the comments. If you're listening to this podcast on any of the major streaming platforms, make sure that you leave us a review so that we go up in the rankings. But thank you for being listeners, for being viewers, and for helping this podcast grow. This week, we have my very own congressman right here in Memphis from Tennessee's 9th Congressional District, Steve Cohen, as a guest on the show. Congressman Cohen, welcome to the show.
Thank you. It's good to be here on Politics Unfiltered.
It's good to have you. What do you think about my replication of the Oval Office?
It looks great. I was looking at the rug, and you've got your not too much gold. I mean, it's a little gold, but not like Trump.
Look, I was telling someone the other day. I said the only thing we're missing is all this messy gold that he has trashed the Oval Office with.
Right. Every trophy he could find, everything he could find in the White House basement.
Well, I am glad to have you on the show. You became the congressman here in the 9th Congressional District when I was first getting kind of tuned into politics. So it's good to have you here. I think you've represented the district well.
Thank you.
And I just want to have an unfiltered conversation about the state of politics in our country right now. You're running for re-election to your seat, and then to talk about kind of what the future looks like, especially with the victories that happened in the most recent election, and what we hope to be a blue wave in 2026. So let's get started. I want to give you a chance because we've got listeners from all over the country. There's folks from 50 states that listen into the podcast. So I'll give you an opportunity to introduce yourself to our listeners so they'll have a little bit of background about you before we get started.
Well, I'm Steve Cohen. I was born here in Memphis, and when I was about 7 years old, I watched both the Democratic and the Republican conventions pretty much gavel to gavel. At the time, we only had 4 television stations. One was the educational station, and they had ABC, CBS, and NBC. So you didn't have a whole bunch of things to click around.
Now my kids are watching YouTube. They get all of everything they watch is on YouTube.
But we had that, so I'd watch the conventions. And the 3 stations all had the conventions on simultaneously. So there's really not much you could watch on television. They were plugged into the conventions, and maybe we had a more informed electorate then because of that. But I watched the conventions, and I asked my mother and father about the difference between Democrats and Republicans. And I think it was my mother said the people in the country are more for the Republicans and the people in the city are more for the Democrats. My father, he was a Democrat, but he talked about the stock market and kind of that made a difference. He was a businessman. He had to pay the bills. He was a physician, but he still does business. So I did that. And then in 1960, I saw John Kennedy come to Memphis and took a picture of him in a car coming down to campaign on the river bluff. And the picture came out good. I wasn't a good photographer, but it came out real well. I've got it up on my congressional wall right now. And I was very much turned on to John Kennedy. And when he had press conferences, in his press conference, he was so brilliant and had such a good sense of humor, a dry sense of humor, that people enjoyed the press conferences. So I would watch the press conferences when I could. I mean, sometimes I had to be in school, but when I could see him, I saw him. I remember one time I was in a bathtub. And I heard the television, and there was John Kennedy's press conference, and I got right up and put a towel around me and got the floor wet and you name it. But I loved John Kennedy. And then he was assassinated, and I can remember almost every minute of that weekend watching the news and watching James Earl Ray shooting Lee Harvey Oswald, and then the funeral and seeing the rotunda with his casket there in Lakeland State, and then the ceremony where the entire funeral party went on foot with a horse-drawn caisson, which Jackie was behind him walking, that went from D.C. across the bridge of the Potomac to Arlington Cemetery and the burial. All of it touched me very much, and it touches me now when I see it in newscasts or stories about the Kennedy life or the Kennedy assassination. Still emotional. So they got me into politics, and I've been in politics ever since. I started working in campaigns and Started my first political button I collected in 1960, Maine and Madison, the Kennedy headquarters. And then we moved to California for a couple of years, and I went to the LBJ campaign headquarters in Los Angeles, and I got a 4 for LBJ card, 4 hours a week for LBJ. So I was into it. And then I filed for office in 1970 when I was a student at Vanderbilt to run for state house. And I didn't win, but I learned a lot. And then I finally got elected, not finally, next time I ran, I got elected in 1976 to something called the State Constitutional Convention. We had 13 articles to offer amendments to the people on. We met for 5 months in the General Assembly Hall, and I was elected vice president of the convention. I was just 28 years old. That was pretty cool.
Yeah, that was pretty. I'm sure that had to be pretty cool for back then, because back then most of the political, there were political powerhouses, there were political machines kind of churning who was and weren't in elected office. I'm sure that had to be extremely cool.
It was worked out fine. It taught me how things could happen, and it worked out well. Served in the convention, ran for county commissioner, was elected in 78, and then I ran for the state senate in 82, and I was elected, and was elected ever since. And then in 2006, I was elected to Congress.
No, did I read something about you being one of the youngest people ever to run for governor or something before?
I don't think I was one of the youngest, but I did run for governor in 1994, and I would have been at that time 35. That was probably somebody. That was young.
That's pretty young.
Yeah, I didn't. Well, was that 35 or 45? 49. I'd have been 45.
45. Let me ask. So, growing up, you talked about being a big fan of JFK and the Kennedy family, and watching all of that stuff transpire around his rise to the presidency, and then obviously his demise. Did you come from? Was your parents, like, was your family really political at all? Like,
no, not at all. Not really. I mean, my father was a doctor. My mom was at home. My dad took me down to the headquarters of Maine and Madison, where I got my button, and I got a banner, it's Kennedy for president, which I gave to a young girl who was the daughter of a child and adolescent psychiatrist, Dr. George Martin. My father was a pediatrician. He became a child and adolescent psychiatrist, and partially because he knew Dr. Martin, they talked about it. He decided to change his specialty. The girl, Susie Martin, his daughter, she was like 7, I guess. I was 10. And she married Mike Cody, who was a prominent Memphis attorney and city council person and U.S. attorney and state attorney general. And it's kind of ironic.
So let me ask you, working your way through the change from a young aspiring elected official to congressman today, what do you think has been the greatest challenge? What's been the greatest challenge for you?
Well, overall, I guess the greatest challenge has been survival. It's never been easy. I got elected to the first office pretty easy. The second office, county commissioner, I won in a Republican district, and an opponent named Mike Tooley. Mike ran a good race. When we filed, there was a gentleman named William Ingram, who had been the mayor of Memphis, and he filed for the office. And turns out Mayor Ingram lived on the west side of Stonewall. The district ended on the east side of Stonewall. And so
he should have done some better research.
he could have challenged it. He didn't do very good research, but I called a Politico that I knew, and I said, "What do you recommend I do?" He said, "Well, I'll give him a call." And coming from him rather than coming from me, he got out of the race. That was number one. Ingram would have gotten a lot of votes and maybe won, but he would have taken votes from me because he was a Democrat.
Yeah.
And he would have gotten some of my votes. Mike Tooley was a Republican. I ended up beating him, I think it was like 44 to 40 or 46 to 41. It wasn't a landslide. I won with little comfort. And Tooley had signs that said Tooley, and they had shamrocks on the side. And I didn't think anything about it. My sign just said Cohen County Commissioner. And people said, why do you think he has the shamrocks? I said, I don't know. Proud of being Irish. He said, no, he wanted people to know he was Irish. And then, what were you?
Yeah. Wanted to question you. Yeah, wanted to question you.
It was a beginning of saying Jew. And I've had that in a lot of campaigns. And so when I got into the Senate, and when I ran for the state Senate, there was a vacancy. Jim White had been the judge, had been the senator, and he became judge. He was elected in August. There wasn't time, and according to Tennessee law, to have a primary, so they let the Democratic local party pick the nominee of the party. Both Democrats and Republicans got picked by the party convention. I thought I had 14 votes going in out of 24. I thought it was like a walk in the park, and I went down to the Union Hall, and first ballot, 12-12. Second ballot, 12-12. Third ballot, 12-12. Sat there, and I didn't know what they called a break, and I thought, what do I do? And there's one person on the committee, a woman, who I kind of knew, and I went up to her and I said, Kathy, what do you think I should do? 14 people told me they're going to vote for me. If I go around and ask them to vote for me again, I'm basically calling two of them a liar. I call all of them liars, possible, but two of them would be liars. And what do I do? She said, well, they might not have pledged to you for every ballot, just for the first ballot. They didn't say that, but that was what she said. So I said, all right, well, I'll thank you. I thought she might have been the one that had left me. So my opponent was a guy who represented the teachers union, and she was a teacher, and there were a bunch of teachers union people there. So I thought, she's going with them, and the teachers were supposed to go together as a block. There were two black teachers, Margaret Yarborough and Leonard Shields, and her. Margaret and Leonard voted for me on every ballot. Kathy peeled off, and the other white teachers that were there from the union were all for Dan Norwood, who was the union lawyer. So I'd picked out Kathy as the person. I just walked off and didn't talk to anybody at all and said, would you vote for me? Just said, how you doing? What's going on? Keep cool, blah, blah, blah. How the Tigers.
Just pleasantries.
and the next ballot, 13-11. And she stood up, and the other teachers came from the corner and charged at her like, oh, what happened? What happened? What did you do? What did you do? And I thought,
Kathy eventually went for you.
Yeah, Kathy went for me. It was 13,
that's pretty cool.
But one vote. And I got in the Senate, and I was there 24 years, and I passed the lottery, which was probably the most impactful thing I'll ever do, because it's provided almost $8 billion in education.
I went, part of my education was paid for by the lottery scholarship. So
Great.
So that was huge. So it does an impact on my life as well. And I'm sure there's so many other young people whose lives it impacted. When I was working at an HBCU here in Nashville, a lot of those young people were in college because of the lottery scholarship. Yeah, because a lot of them although it was in Nashville, a lot of them were from Memphis and different parts of Tennessee, so they were benefiting from that scholarship. I want to talk a minute though about the current political climate. You mentioned that county commission race that you were in, and that opponent Tooley having shamrocks and trying to point out that he was Irish and you were Jewish. Right now, there's this whole national and international climate that has turned the sights towards Jewish people because of what has happened in the Middle East with the Gaza conflict. And you've been outspoken on that conflict. But do you see, do you think about that moment when you was running for county commission and some of the anti-Semitic tropes that we have seen coming from people in this climate? And then how do you navigate that as a Jewish congressman when there has been so much thrown at Jewish leaders in the United States because of what's happening in the Middle East?
There's been a lot lately. And first I'm going to divert because it's a great story. I ran for governor in 1994, not with the idea of being the Democratic nominee, but I ran to promote the lottery throughout the state. And I went all over the state and talked about the lottery. I talked about tax off food, tax reform, and ethics. And I won the debate they had in Nashville. It was on the front page of the Tennessean and all that stuff. And I got enough votes to have beaten somebody and come close to some other people. Not spending much money, but I worked hard. But I went to Dixon, Tennessee one weekend. And a radio show in Dixon, Tennessee. And I went into the radio show in the little small town, and nobody we knocked on the door, and the guy came and opened the door, and I'm sitting there with him. And he said, Cohen, you Jewish? I said, yes, sir. He said, good luck. So that was a little bit for me being Jewish in Tennessee. Good luck. So as far as the anti-Semitism now, Netanyahu is somebody I don't have any appreciation for or respect.
Yeah.
I boycotted his two appearances before the House of Representatives because I thought they were inappropriate. First time, he wasn't invited by Barack Obama. It should have been and was there and was dismissive of Barack Obama. And the second time, he came because of Trump, and it was political again. But I don't think the man's been good. And he's hurt Israel's reputation around the country, the world.
Yeah.
So I've tried to, and I think I've been successful in advocating for humanitarian aid for Gaza, but at the same time supporting Israel. What happened on October the 7th was unbelievable. 1,200 people killed, 220 people taken hostage. Hamas, they're not good people. And Israel's got somebody on their backs all the time. Bob Dylan had a song, I think it was during his Christian period, but it didn't really make much difference. But he had a song called The Neighborhood Bully, and it was about Israel. And it was saying, there were the bombs coming from Baghdad, and the Israel bombed a factory, a missile factory or military. And they said they bombed it because the missiles were intended for you. And it said, if you had neighbors like that, you'd be a bully too. And, Israel's got a tough climate. And Iran wants them off the map, wants to kill them all. Hamas wants to kill them all. It's only so much. Egypt for years didn't have relations with them. So it's been tough. Israel's a home for the Jewish people, and they should have a home for the Jewish people. And it's very difficult. So when we had a vote, I support. It's been difficult because some of the things I think that now has gone too far.
Yeah. Do you think that the current ceasefire, this peace plan, will hold?
No. I don't think Hamas will give up their weapons. I was in Lebanon just about the beginning of September, and I don't think Hezbollah is going to give up their weapons either.
Well, but we hear the president, thumping his chest, talking about if they don't give up the weapons, then we'll go in and we'll take them very quickly. And I'm assuming that he's saying that he is going to send American troops to on a mission without having it cleared by Congress.
Right. That's what he's suggesting. And he's also suggesting that the American troops, and we've got the greatest army in the world, but the IDF's a pretty damn good army too. And the IDF didn't clear out Hamas. Yeah. Going in those tunnels is for a lot of people, it's death.
But do you think he's saying that just to be boastful, that he really doesn't mean it, and he'll leave Israel to try to figure it out on their own?
I don't know. Trump is so unpredictable, and he's not very clever. He's clever in some ways. He got to be president. He has understood how to get his electorate and keep them with him. But he's bombing these boats in the Caribbean. That's illegal as it can be, and it's inhumane and it's immoral. Those people have not been tried or convicted. We don't know if they have drugs on there. He says they're killing 25,000 people with each boat. That's horse manure. Fentanyl can kill a lot of people out of the 25,000. Cocaine does not kill all those people. And it could be grass they've got on the boats.
Yeah, but have we heard anything about the supposed survivors of that one boat attack? Have they actually identified that those people were drug traffickers?
I don't know that it's happened. They sent the Ecuadorian back to Ecuador, and I think he was released by their government. The Colombian guy might have been charged with some drug crimes, and they still have him for crimes. I don't know.
As a congressman, do you worry about? I know as a citizen, I worry about this troop buildup with the naval forces.
Oh yeah,
Venezuela. Do you worry about that as a congressman, that he is going to overstep his boundary and do something that's outside of his authority without coming to Congress?
Definitely I do, and I'm on the Intelligence Committee now. I was appointed to the Intelligence Committee this summer. We get briefings and reports, which we go read, and it's a stack of papers, and you go through them, and there's areas on China, and there's North Korea, and there's the cartels in South America, and then there's, so you got all these different areas, Kyiv, Ukraine war, you name it. And one of the areas which we should be getting coverage on is anything he's doing in the Caribbean with this firing at sinking boats. We've had no briefing at all. Nothing at all from them to the Intelligence Committee, and that's a violation of this.
So you were in Congress during Trump's first term. Now you're back during what I call the retribution term, the retribution term, Trump 2.0.
Yeah.
Do you see? I mean, obviously, from the outside looking in, is clear that the folks who are serving with you in Congress on the other side aren't doing much to keep a check on him, that they have pretty much said, do what you want to do.
Basically, they're not exercising their job as a congressperson to be a check and balance on the president. I was on a PBS program on pardon powers a couple of days ago. John Katko was the host of it, and he was a congressman who voted for impeachment, a Republican. He didn't run for re-election because he knew it was ridiculous. He wouldn't even win the primary. Of the 10 people, Republicans, who voted in the House for impeachment, I think 6 or give or take 6 didn't run because they knew they'd get beat. 2 ran and got beat. 2 survived.
Now, here in Tennessee, you have a there's a member of the Tennessee delegation, Andy Ogles, who I like to label Santos of the South, and Andy Ogles. You know, he has been out there advocating for some of the worst ideals that could propel someone like Donald Trump. He's even out calling for a third term for Donald Trump. When you have members of our delegation like that, you know, how do y'all meet and have a moment where you say, man, come to grips with reality?
Well, no. We don't meet as a delegation very often at all. I am the senior member of the delegation. They call it the dean of the delegation. I have not had a single meeting as dean because there's very little we vote on together or affect Tennessee in that way. If you have private acts, you need to get everybody's signature on it. And that's a reason why you shouldn't make enemies within your delegation, because you'll need their signatures just to get a post office changed or resolutions as minor as that, a name on a post office or a name on a building or something like that. So it's wise to keep your criticism of your fellow Tennessee members down.
Yeah.
And Ogles does some things. I've held my tongue and let other people do it. But I think to represent the district and get things done, you've got to do that.
Now he's got a pretty sharp opponent.
The mayor of Columbia,
Chaz Moulder. Pretty sharp opponent who's raised a ton of money. I mean, who strikes the right sort of balance for that district. So my fingers are crossed that you don't have to worry about him, and hopefully Chaz Moulder's there representing the.
I think Chaz will win. He's impressive.
Yeah. So when you think about some of the other districts across the state, and you've seen people come and go, you've seen Democrats in those seats, you've seen Republicans in those seats. You know, what do you think ideally the delegation as a whole should really be advocating for the state?
Well, each person has got different perspectives on national politics. In the state, it's hard to say what the state needs more money, but because the state has a regressive tax system and it doesn't bring in enough funds to fund the programs they should. But that's up to the governor. You know, the governor had a chance to have a summer food program for students out of school, and the federal government sent him $75 million, and he refused it. He set up his own little program, $13 million in rural counties in Middle Tennessee, gave up $75 million, which could have fed kids all over the state. Memphis, Nashville, Knoxville, Chattanooga got 0. So that's his politics. I've tried to encourage him to get the SNAP program and to use some of the rainy day funds for SNAP.
Won't do it.
He wouldn't do it. First he said it's a federal program, and then somebody must have told him to say something different. He said, well, we couldn't put the money on the EBT cards anyway. Well, quite a few states are doing it, and they're not worried about the process. They're going to get them the money, and they'll be reimbursed by the federal government.
You've been in federal and state government. You know, if he wanted to get it done,
he could do it.
He could get it. He could do it.
But he didn't want to do it. He just like he created this program, voucher program for the schools, and he's given a lot of money to kids without an income cap, and most of them are kids who are from wealthy families who are going to the same private schools they went to before. So it's not getting them into private schools to get a better chance. It's just paying them $7,500 of their tuition.
We've seen Trump first term, again, Trump 2.0. Do you think this second term is more dangerous than the first?
Oh, by far. The Supreme Court gave him an immunity that there was no basis for. Each of those Supreme Court nominees, Democrat and Republican, came forth. They gave some philosophy they had to the Senate Judiciary Committee to get through there, and then to the Senate as a whole. Kavanaugh and Gorsuch and Barrett all said they were strict constructionists. There's nothing in the Constitution at all about giving the president immunity from actions that he does. He's not supposed to be a king. We got rid of King George. We don't want a king. So when you change the law, which John Roberts was mostly responsible for, and I had great hope for John Roberts. I've lost all faith and respect for him. When you say the president is immune from prosecution and immune from as criminal or civil, can't be sued either. If it's an act in his official capacity, then he can take bribes for pardons. He can take bribes for anything.
He can use his cryptocurrency as a scheme to take any under the table dollars.
Right, and he can't be prosecuted. So by doing that, they let him loose.
Yeah,
it's just like giving Al Capone a dozen more machine guns.
Now you said you've lost faith in Roberts, or lost trust in Roberts. What about the court? Do you still believe in the institution of the court?
Not really. I kind of think Amy Coney Barrett, and I hope it's not just because she went to Rhodes College, and I'm in my district, and I think the world of Rhodes College. I kind of have hope for her that maybe she can be independent. And she's done a couple of things where she's given a little bit of a dissenting view on some cases. She had made a big difference, but she's shown a little independence. Gorsuch and Kavanaugh, they're right there with Alito and Thomas and Roberts too. I thought Roberts had a respect for the history of the court, and being Chief Justice, he was going to try to see that it went the right direction. But with that opinion on immunity, and then holding out the prosecution of Trump by Jack Smith until the last minute, Jack Smith asked them to expedite it because it was necessary to get this case to court before the election. And they could have heard it or issued their opinion in May or June. They waited till the end of July on the last day. They held the ball, and it's like the offense in the last 2 minutes is trying to kill the clock.
Now there was this whole movement to after Roe fell. There was this whole movement to expand the court. But then you hear people people on the conservative side saying, impeach justices across the country. Do you think that there is ever a right balance to expand the court or impeach justices that's on the courts?
It's very difficult to impeach anybody. You get a majority in the House, and the Democrats had a majority, and I was proud to vote for impeachment twice. But you have to have 2/3 in the Senate, and they didn't get 2/3. I think they got about 57 or 56 or whatever it was, but they had a handful of Republicans, and now, the Louisiana senators, Cassidy,
Kennedy.
No, there's Kennedy.
Cassidy.
And then I get Cassidy and Callison both by mine. It's Cassidy, and he's still sweating it. And so I think that's the reason he voted for Bobby Kennedy. Bobby Kennedy told him he wasn't going to do all these crazy things he's done about vaccines.
Come on, nut. That's a nut.
But it's sad. But he voted to impeach him. It was a great thing. But because that he's up now, he wants to try to get back at Trump's good graces. And so it's hard to impeach anybody. I don't think you can impeach a justice if you caught them with their hand in the till. But if you expanding the court is not there's arguments to make it. I mean, they just came up with 9. I mean, there was a reason to have 9 baseball players. They could have had 10th. You could have had a rotating ball player, but there's no reason for 9 justices.
So on impeachment, do you think the president is going to go into the 2026 elections, trying to scare up his base, saying that if you elect Democrats, they're going to impeach him again? Do you think he'll try to use that?
He'll use anything he can, and he might use that. But the fact is, if we get a majority in the House, there's a chance we can impeach him. But I don't think Hakeem Jeffries wants to impeach him because it'll give him that woe is me.
Yeah.
And we know that the Senate's not going to do it.
Yeah.
I mean, Mitch McConnell could have voted for it, and he backed out, and maybe he could have got the votes. It was one of the worst things Mitch did, but go down in ignominy for not having acted when he knew he was wrong. But I don't think we'll impeach him. If there's not going to be 66 Democrats, if we get 50 Democrats, it'll be phenomenal.
Yeah. So 2026. I mean, you came into Congress 2006. Term started in 2007.
Yeah.
And you were there when Nancy Pelosi took the gavel, right?
Yep, the majority makers.
Yeah. And you were a part of that historic wave that elected the first woman Speaker of the House. So you've seen red waves and blue waves over the years. I believe that we're on the cusp of a blue wave next year. And one of the things that we haven't seen Republicans do thus far is kind of flex their oversight muscles on this president. If given the opportunity in 2026, if Democrats are able to regain the majority in the House, do you think Democrats are ready to really put oversight at the forefront of kind of trying to wrangle this president in?
Do you think that a tiger that's in the Memphis Zoo that has been fed carrots and broccoli and kale for 3 years and sees a piece of steak outside is going to go eat it? Yeah.
What Now, and I know you're on the Intelligence Committee, but are there any, if reelected to Congress, are there any committees that you're dreaming of wanting to be on or switch to or lead?
I've been on the first 18 years. I was on Judiciary and Transportation for 18 years. They were great committees to be on for me and for Memphis because I civil rights and civil liberties has always been two of my major issues, if not my two major issues. And I've had a respect for lawyers and the courts, and I know, Brown versus Board of Education and plus Loving versus Virginia, all these forward-thinking things came out of the courts, not out of the legislatures. So Judiciary was great. And transportation, because we got FedEx and we've got all the transportation issues here with the river and railroads and highways and distribution center. Got on Intelligence, which I wanted to be on because I wanted to look behind the curtain and see some stuff and have a voice on because I've been involved in the Helsinki Commission, which I've been on, which is also foreign affairs, and got that chance. It's a very sought after committee. I had to give up transportation because the rules of the Democratic Party are there has to be a member from the Appropriations Committee, somebody from the Judiciary Committee, somebody from the Foreign Affairs Committee, and there was nobody on from Judiciary. It had been kind of overlooked. So Hakeem got me the spot on Judiciary, and therefore I had to stay on Judiciary and gave up transportation. Next term, Judiciary would be nice to be on if we have the majority because we'll be doing the hearings on Trump and oversight.
Yeah.
And Jamie Raskin's our chairman, and he's fantastic. Dan Goldman's on the committee. We've got some real good people. Jai Paul is on the committee, and she's strong. We got some real strong people. So, but at the same time, I'd be chairman of the committee. I could be chairman of a subcommittee of Judiciary, but I could be chairman of the Aviation Subcommittee, and that'd be good for Memphis to be the chairman,
especially with FedEx.
With FedEx.
Yeah. So let's talk about Congress for a moment. There's a lot of young congressional members who have been the target of a lot of vitriol from this president. The squad and folks like that. There's a lot of talk about AOC challenging Schumer. There's a lot of talk about Jasmine Crockett. Obviously, she's everybody's favorite go-to person right now. You get a chance to work with a lot of these young progressives. Do you ever get a chance to mentor them on kind of here's some things to really be having your sights set on in Congress?
I haven't had that opportunity. And I don't know if they've been mentored by anybody in particular. Sometimes you just kind of learn it by feel. Yeah. Most of the junior members, and they're junior members, don't pass much legislation, don't pass hardly any at all. Because when you have a bill, when I first got up there, I had a buddy named Jim Costa. We were in the National Conference of State Legislatures together. He'd been a senator in California. I'm a senator in Tennessee. We were both on the national body, and we were on the executive committee together. He was president. I ran for president, didn't make it. But I was on the executive committee. And so I said to Jim when I came up, he got in Congress a term before I did. And I said, we're talking to Jim, and Jim said, well, you might pass one bill your first year, and you might get a couple of amendments on bills. That's all you're going to do. And I went, Jim, I'm going to pass 6 or 7 or 8 bills because the state Senate, I always passed 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 bills and passed amendments. I thought, yeah, that's Jim. I'm going to pass all these bills. Well, if you have a good idea, the chairman takes it. And I mean, it's minor things. It was a minor thing. John Conyers was my mentor, and I was chairman of the Judiciary Committee, and I had the greatest respect for him. But something came up. I think Ben Hooks passed away my first term, and I drew a resolution up I wanted to introduce on Ben Hooks for honoring him. And I got the word from the chairman's staff member, the chairman's going to sponsor that. And I
take it right from under you.
Right. It was from my district and my friend and all, but he's a friend of John Conyers too. And it's just like, well, and the chairman sponsored it.
Yeah.
I was allowed to be a co-sponsor. The chairman will take anything good, and they always do. And the chairman sponsors the big bills. So the women don't get that chance, and the men either. I mean, we got Maxwell Frost and some good young guys as well. But they're good on their feet, and they speak well, and that's important. But speech doesn't get votes.
Yeah,
speech gets clicks on your social media, and it gets you followers on your X or your Blue Sky. but it doesn't pass votes.
Yeah. So let's talk about your time in Congress. You've been coined as being progressive.
I've been very.
You've been-
It's funny, when I went back, we go back on occasion, even in the break, and a woman who's I won't mention her name because she's running for another position now in national office, but she came up. She said, "I read about the progressives giving you hell." I said, "You're as progressive as they come." So
let me ask, how does one stay progressive over time, over having served, a long period of time in Congress? Like, what's been your, I guess, recipe to trying to stay uh, uh, in front of the curve?
Well, I've always been in front of the curve, and I think I've always been for change, and it's been for change on drug laws, change on tax policy, change on social services, changes on civil liberties. And when I was in the state senate, I was the only member of the state senate that did not vote for a constitutional ban on gay marriage. There was a resolution came up one time to have everybody, it said, it urged, Ben Ashley of Knoxville did it, urged everyone to post the 10 Commandments in their school, their places of business, and the government buildings. I mean, it's church and state. I voted no. I was the only person to vote no. I had no idea it was going to get to be a national scene. It got to be a national deal. I was in Time and Newsweek with a quote that I had, which was pretty good. I said, Moses gave the 10 Commandments. Moses gave the 10 Commandments to the people. He didn't need the help of the General Assembly. So I've always been ahead of the curve, and I've wanted to be, and can, and as slow as we are on things. But that's just what when my heroes have been change agents.
Yeah.
When I was in Memphis, it was Maxine Smith and Vasco Smith and Russell Sugarman. On the county commission, I worked with Maxine, Walter Bailey, Vasco, Walter Bailey, Jesse Turner, and Minerva Jonigan. And I can tell you Minerva's phone number, 942-9196. Minerva's been dead for 10 years, I guess. But I used to call 942-9196. It was kind of like Jaw, call 12.
And you have, you have a lot of, let's talk about Memphis, because Memphis is a historically black city. I think right now, majority black city in the country per capita. You have been able to win re-election with a high percentage of African American voters, of young voters, of older voters.
African Americans are my base.
Crossover appeal around the table. How have you been able to keep that your base, your voting block together for so many terms?
Well, I work hard. I go to a lot of events. I go to a lot of public events. Negro College Fund, funerals, weddings, AKA events, Ski-Wee, Delta, you name it, I'm there. and people know me, and they know I'm straight, and I vote for them, and I vote progressive. And I've been on Trump's rear for 10 years, and I think people understand that and respect that. And I was trained when I was on the county commission, they used to call me the fifth black commissioner, and that was an honor. And Russell Sugarman, I was nobody closer to me than Russell. And Julian Bond was a great friend of mine. And then I became friends with John Lewis in the Congress. We used to sit together often. And I think I'm probably the only person in Congress, other than Steny Hoyer, that both went to Mrs. Lewis's funeral to be with John, and then to go to John's funeral, both at Ebenezer. And that was the first two times I saw Raphael Warnock. He's a phenomenal preacher. But now I've just had good leaders, and I think Kennedy's inspired me, and they were change agents, and so I've stayed above the curve, and it hadn't been difficult for me.
So when you hear people say, what has Steve Cohen done for the 9th Congressional District? What's he done for Memphis? Like, what's your checklist of things that you say, check the record, here's what I've done?
Well, you can just walk around Memphis and see what I've done. I got $30,000 grant, which was a big deal during the Obama administration from Chairman Secretary Castro, for what we call South City, Foot Park at South City, which took down Foot Homes, which was a housing project, and built what is a phenomenal 700-plus person living center, mixed use housing.
Looks amazing. I drove through there. It looks amazing.
It was hell before. Foot Homes was dangerous as hell and terrible. $30 million was a big deal. There were only 7 choice neighborhood grants in the country, and I got one of them. So that's the first thing. You go over to the bridge. I got a $15 million Tiger grant that gave monies to fix up the Mid-America Mall and to help in the funding of a pedestrian and bicycle bridge that goes across the Mississippi River, the only place in the country you can bicycle and or walk across the Mississippi River. Great tourist attraction, exercise.
I actually didn't know that. You making news for me today. I didn't know that. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, it was major. I worked with Charlie McVeigh on it, who put a lot of private money, and it was kind of his idea, and I put that together. If you look at the AutoZone baseball park, I passed a bill that said that there'd be a tax rebate on the sales tax at the ballpark in Memphis and the ballpark in Jackson, because they were building a baseball park in Jackson. And I got Don Sundquist. I said, Don, it'd be great politics for you. Baseball's an all-American sport. It's a downtown project in Memphis. It's a big deal for Jackson. And I got him to do it. And that's the sales tax rebate has been what's kept the ballpark alive. It hadn't been the ticket sales as much as that rebate. So that's a big deal. You go around the city, whether it's College Chapel, which Bishop Williamson was big on me funding. He was behind that as a big CME project. I got $3 million to help renew College Chapel, that puts a place for people to live who have been homeless, and Room at the Inn works there. If you go down to Methodist Hospital, I got 2 $500,000 ambulances to bring people from the country to the city, and where they can be treated in the ambulances, kids, save lives. Got a lot of money for the airport to help them with the construction of the new terminal, with the de-icing facility that keeps FedEx going 365 days a year, and storage there. Got money for Hospitality Hub, which deals with people that are homeless and gives them a place to live. I think we got them $3 or $4 million. We're going to be out at Overton Park next Friday on the dedication of really, there was a big fight between the Memphis Zoo and Overton Park on some greensward land, and whether it was going to be parking for the zoo or if it was going to be used by citizens for outdoor activities, and the park is supposed to be. I love both of them. I grew up playing Little League baseball at Overton Park and going to the zoo. I got $3 million to solve that problem, and now they're all copacetic. The zoo's going to get a new portion of property that the park's going to get it that was part of the zoo. It's going to be opened up to the park for more trails, and the parking is going to be resolved, and the greensward is going to be beautified. And that's our top park in the city. The greensward, or the Shelby.
It's a green line.
I guess it's the green line, but it's another walking and bicycle path that they've got from Wolf River Parkway. They had an impediment where they had to have a bridge and they had to have a lot of money, and I got it for them in the highway bill. One was $21 million to build an overpass for people who could continue to ride their bikes or run. So that's a major exercise and theoretically transportation corridor. Got that. I mean, I could go on and on.
I saw you at a recent news, I guess a ribbon cutting or
at South
ceremonial
City
for for the bridge.
Oh, we did the bridge too.
King's Crossing Bridge, but King's Crossing Bridge is a project. But wasn't there something on the main bridge, the Memphis bridge, the M-shaped bridge? Was it?
No,
the federal funding come into
the Hernando de Soto Bridge had a crack that the Arkansas folks who were examining it missed, and it caused the bridge to be shut down for a while. And Secretary Buttigieg came down, and he came down and got the bridge fixed and going and working. This will be replacing the Memphis, Arkansas bridge that was started in 1949. It was built, construction was finished in 49. I think they started planning in 45 or something. And this will give it wider lanes. It'll make it earthquake resilient, which is important in this area. We're in an earthquake zone. And I got a $394 million grant, and everybody gives me credit for it. The head of the Chamber of Commerce, Ted Townsend, Mayor Young, you name it, because they came up and they said, you get that, we need that, or we can't get it. And I went to Secretary Buttigieg, and then one of his people came down here for a site visit, and he was one that was going to be helping to choosing. And I did my typical self. I guess we were at Graceland, we were having dinner, and people got up and made their talks. And most people get up and go, oh, this is good for business, and oh, this is going to bring in jobs, and oh, this is going to be important for people getting, whatever. And so I said, this is an important project. and I don't want you to put too much of a burden on you while you're here.
Yeah.
But if we don't get it, I'm going to slit my wrist.
Thankfully, he saved your life.
Right. I let him know it was important. But that's the biggest infrastructure grant in the history of the state of Tennessee. So I'm real proud of that, but it's not happened yet. It's going to happen.
So right now, there's a stalemate. Is Congress going to reopen?
Eventually,
anytime soon.
I think it'll be in the next week or two. I'm not positive. I mean, the Republicans are I think the Republicans realized they lost the elections on Tuesday terribly, much worse than they ever anticipated. They thought they had a good chance at beating Mikey Sherrill in New Jersey, and she won by a dozen points, I think. I think they're going to realize they're losing on this issue. The polls all show that the public blames the Republicans, and they are. They've got the House, the Senate, and the presidency, and they can't do anything with the Democrats to help on these. And the if you eliminate the premiums on the ACA, most of the people that lose the money are in the red states, and they're probably Trump people. So the Republican Congress people in those red states are feeling the heat too.
Yeah.
So they're going to want to give in, and I think though something will come about, we'll come back.
Is there anything that we talked about the past projects that you've been fighting for and have gotten funded for this district? Is there anything that's on your short list right now that you're hoping to get buy-in or get investment from this current administration into Memphis?
Well, the last 2 years where community projects have not been permitted. Speaker Johnson decided in the continuing resolution we passed in the first term that he wasn't going to have community projects. And that was, I think, foolish because the more went to Republicans than Democrats because they're the majority. So he's hurting his people more than anybody. But Article 1 says Congress passes the budgets.
Yeah.
We should have 1 or 2% of the budget for projects we think are important. We're closest to the people. So we didn't get them that year. And this year, whether we get them or not, it's up in the air. So there's some project I've been working on there that I'd like to carry on and get. And one of them relates to Mason Temple, and it needs some work. And we had some money in there that would have gone to Mason Temple. We've got some monies in there to help with some business projects. We've gotten money for the Minority Business Center. We got a Minority Business Center here for 13 years. Trump just closed it. But we also had money for the Minority Business Council here. And I'd like to work with some people that are working on business opportunities more.
This administration, the obvious attack on African American history, African American establishments. You just mentioned the Minority Business Center that he's shuttered. I look at the troops on the ground here, the task force that's here. I like so many other people realize that yes, we do have a crime issue here in the city. I think we'd be naive not to mention that there's a crime issue here, but how we tackle that crime issue, I think is increasingly important as we see this president's true colors come out in true social posts in the middle of the night. And then the balance of whether troops plus law enforcement is the right combination. I don't think troops are necessary, especially if they're not arresting and not carrying weapons. And then when law enforcement's on our streets, how they treat the citizens of the city, how they is due process going to be thrown out the window? Are they just becoming a reconnaissance team for ICE? When you weigh those things, do you think that this investment that he's quote unquote thinking he's making in safety in Memphis, do you think it's worth what we're seeing right now?
I'm exactly where you are. I supported the FBI, the Alcohol, Firearms, and Tobacco, and the Drug Enforcement Administrations coming in here. They were already here, so they give us more people and more crime protection. But I was against the National Guard coming in. For one thing, I think it makes a bad look for the city, and we're a tourist city. One of my friends has got a rib restaurant downtown. It's more than a rib restaurant. The Rendezvous. It's a mecca. It's a shrine.
It's the rib restaurant.
Right. It's a shrine. But John said that the Cattlemen Association was not going to have their convention in Memphis this year. I imagine when these cattlemen come to town, they eat some ribs. But they're afraid of the crime.
Yeah.
And so, we need to deal with it. But I think the National Guard here is not good. And normally the National Guard is working with ICE. And ICE is not necessary here either. Right now, I'm getting a big tree in my yard cut down, which pains me. I love trees, but a whole bunch of people, it's got some growth on it and could fall. If it falls on my garage. Well, my garage burnt about a year and a half ago, so I got a new garage. I don't want to have a tree burn. When my garage was fixed, everybody that fixed my garage spoke Spanish. All the guys that are cutting down my tree, except for the main guy, speak Spanish. So if we could deport all the Spanish immigrants, we're going to lose a lot of people doing jobs that are important. And they work in the child care, and they work in nursing homes, and they work in the restaurant industry and the hotel industry, which is our tourist industry. And they do a lot of things. And I'm sure that doctors and lawyers too. But we don't need to be, if they've committed a murder or a rape, and that's what Kristi Noem said at first, we're going to get the worst of the worst. Rapists, child pedophiles outside of 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue, and rapists, and they're going to get them. But they're getting people that are they're in the country illegally, true, but they're not doing anything wrong.
Yeah. And then talk about the people who have come through the process, seeking asylum, and who has actually gone through the process, but then the Supreme Court says you can throw them out as well. And it seems like they've become the new high priority target more than the criminals have become targets.
Well, they've become the more high priority targets because, I think that's one of the reasons that they go into the cities. ICE is going in to get Latinos here in Memphis. They're doing it in Chicago. They were doing it in L.A., New York. They're doing it in all the big cities. Trump wants to deport people. Trump's father was arrested at a KKK rally in the 20s, and the KKK was strong in the 20s. And Trump's not far. Apple doesn't fall far from the tree.
And he and his dad were close.
Yeah, they were close.
It's like protege.
Same attitude. And he wants numbers, and he wants ICE has become, or the Department of Homeland Security, the largest law enforcement agency in the country. And they're advertising on television saying to policemen, local law enforcement, are you not getting the opportunity to do what you signed up for because your hands are tied? Well, if you want to have your hands untied and do things that you want to do them, join ICE, and we'll give you up to a $50,000 bonus. We'll give you some compensation or help with your college loans, and we'll give you a good pension plan. So they're advertising to say, local law enforcement, cut out. Let the federal government get you away with money to work for ICE. Their priority is not crime in Memphis, Chicago, Los Angeles, New York, anywhere in the United States. Their number one priority is immigration, getting rid and deporting people who have not necessarily committed crimes because Trump wants to be the great deporter.
Yeah.
So that's crazy. And when they're competing, they want to. We're 500 police officers down, and yet they watch television and they see I can make more money going to work for ICE.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. I'm gonna ask you some lightning round questions, and then we're gonna talk about your reelection. Then I'll let you go. You talked about your friend on the rendezvous, but I have to ask you the question: when people in Washington ask you about barbecue, or when people visit the city, where do you send them?
I usually tell them Payne's in the barbecue shop.
Oh, that's pretty. That's pretty good. Your friend is probably listening to this. He's gonna say, "Steve, you said you're making enough tourist money."
When John's got the ribs on, the dry ribs are great, but Payne's has got the best sandwich. They're fantastic. I love them. And I've been going, I don't know if you know the barbecue shop,
Yeah.
but it originally was a place on South Parkway called Brady and Lil's. And I used to go to Brady and Lil's when I was in my 20s. And this family's got the barbecue shop. And it was the best barbecue. They served their sandwiches on white bread. That was their white toast. They still do it at the barbecue shop.
What's your favorite place to direct people to when they visit Memphis?
Well, obviously people want to go to Graceland and not tell them to go to Stax too. And the Civil Rights Museum has got to be a must see. I don't know if there's any secrets. I mean, Graceland, Civil Rights Museum, Stax, Sun Records is a good. I used to think Sun Records was a joke, but I did the tour and it was really good. People go see the river. I try to encourage people to walk across the bridge and see the river from that height and from that perspective. I think that's important. The zoo, the zoo is outstanding. It's really one of the.
It is a great zoo versus some of the zoo, and I've got 2 young kids, so we visited a lot of zoos over the last few years. The Memphis Zoo is pretty cool.
Memphis Zoo is kind of representative of Memphis. It's not maybe a zoo like San Diego that's so gigantically large, but it's a zoo you can get around. It's doable. You walk a little bit, but not that much, and you see everything. What else do you need? Memphis is small, and we don't have everything, but we got enough, and you can do it.
Who do you have a favorite Memphis musician?
Oh, I had him in the past. I guess Alex Chilton was one of my favorites. He was a friend, and it was big star. But I guess Al Green, you know, I went to the United Negro College Fund dinner this weekend, and they had Boo Mitchell and the high rhythm section, and they had 2 women and a man come up and do Al Green stuff, and it was, Alice is unbelievable.
If the Tigers take on Vanderbilt, who are you gonna?
I'm for the Tigers. I mean, I was the Commodore at Vanderbilt, but I'm a Tiger fan from when I was going to Crump Stadium.
Cool. That's great. Let's talk about something I'm sure that's on everybody's mind. People that's probably watching this. If you're watching this, yes, I'm going to ask the congressman about re-election, but we had a lot of stuff to get through because he's actually working every day as our congressman. Let's talk about re-election. I'm gonna read to you a quote from DNC Chair Ken Martin. He was on CNN with Jake Tapper. I'm not the biggest Tapper fan right now, but I'll let it slide. Jake Tapper asked him, "Your party has a lot of people in it who just will not retire. They're in their 70s, they're in their 80s. Ken Martin responded and said, "I reject this ageism that's out there. There's plenty of young people who are elected, who are in elected office, who are doing nothing right with the power they have." Do you agree with Ken Martin?
I don't know about the young people who are in elected office that aren't doing right by the power. I mean, Frost is really good, Maxwell Frost. AOC is a good got a good voice, and she's got a good following. There's some other young people that do a really good job. But I think there are a lot of older people that do phenomenal jobs. I do a good job.
So,
And if they had term limits and it wasn't age, we wouldn't have had a lottery in Tennessee. And as far as age goes, I think I'm a pretty goddamn good 76.
yeah, so you enter politics pretty early, at a pretty early age, and now you have a young candidate who's challenging you. He's become somewhat of a national spokesperson around youth issues and gun issues. You have a young person who's challenging you. What do you say to folks who say, Steve Cohen, you need to get out of the way and hand it over to someone young. You need to give it to a young person?
Well, there'll be a time for that, but he's not ready. He's only served 3 years in the General Assembly, and he hadn't passed a bill. I don't think he's passed a resolution. And his attendance record was the worst of any member of the General Assembly. You learn from going to office. I went in the Constitutional Convention 5 months, 77. Then I've been in the state Senate for 24 years. My attendance record was outstanding, and it's been outstanding in Congress. Even when you lose, and most of the votes we go up there now, we lose, we vote, and we know the Republicans are going to control, you punch the button, you go, there's 770,000 people in my district that want me to push this button. And so you're up there, and that's your duty. If you don't take your attendance as your responsibility, and I know he had a brother who committed suicide, and he had some problems, and he said that's what he was dealing with. So I don't think he's ready. And he could have waited 2 years. He could have waited 4 years. He could have talked to me. He was an intern for me when he was in high school, and he never talked to me about running for office. It was kind of like Pearl Harbor. And that's not the way you do it, and you work with people, and it's just not time. And I've got more to do, and I've got experience, and I've got the opportunity. I'll be a committee chairman when I go up there. The lowest thing in the world is a freshman in the minority party.
Regardless of how much national attention you have?
Right,
Yeah.
Exactly. So why would you trade in a 20-year veteran who's got the choice of chairman of or ranking member, whichever it becomes with a majority or minority party, of the aviation subcommittee or committee spot on judiciary and intelligence committee, for a freshman who will get what's left over?
In 2024, we saw national Democrats and donors push President Biden out of the presidential race. Some of them would have gladly loved to see him step down from the office of the president. I'm not one of those people. Um, are you facing that level of pressure where people are trying to push you to say you got to go, Steve? You should retire.
Have some people have come to me and said that they have a problem and their friends have a problem. They don't want to be against me and they don't want to be against my opponent. And I think, well, the problem was caused by my opponent by running. He could have waited a couple of years. So it's not my problem. And some people have said, oh, you need to mentor him. I don't think he's mentorable, to be honest. If I had to, so that's really nice. So some people have come, but most of the people have said, I've got your back. We've got this thing. Don't worry about it. I've got you. I support you all the time. I had a lot of checks come in from people or friends without even asking for it, and people pledging their support. And if you go on social media, I mean, people are there. Steve, we're with you. Steve, stay strong. Steve, don't quit. And I've had it, for years before even he announced. People would see me and I'd say, don't you quit. The nicest thing, one time I was coming out of the Civil Rights Museum Awards, and I got to the door and I walked out and there was an older African-American lady and she stopped me and she says, I want you to retire when you want to retire. And a lot of older people, particularly African-American women, support me and want me to retire when I want to retire, not because some people want some new guy who's going to have his time. He will get in office at some point or another, but it's not going to be in 2026.
Let me ask you about your successor. Um, does your current opponent run it against you? Put an X on him as you endorsing him as a future successor?
I wouldn't say that necessarily, but he did something that I found very, very objectionable. At the naming of the bridge, King's Crossing, my staff had inquired, where am I going to sit? They said, in the gallery with everybody that's there to be at the program. They had a lectern. They had 8 seats behind the lectern for 8 speakers. And they said, we're only going to have speakers, and it's going to be the Arkansas and Tennessee Department of Transportations, the West Memphis mayor, the Memphis mayor, the head of the Chamber of Commerce, Representative Jack Soden of Elvis Presley estate, and a gentleman who represents B.B. King's estate. Fine, no problem. Turns out, Senator Brent Taylor was there, who I think is a senior member of the Transportation Committee in the Senate, and Joe Towns was there, House member. My opponent went and got a chair from the gallery, picked it up and took it up and put it up there with the other 8 seats and sat in it. And a lady from the Department of Transportation, her name is Nikki, and she's the comms director, came up to him and said, these seats are for the speakers. And they got into a confrontation. And she picked up the seat and took it and put it back in the gallery and then left and did her job. He had somebody with him, I think it was a bodyguard, pick up the chair, put it back up on the lectern, and even after she told him not to sit there because it wasn't his spot, he sat there the whole time. Now, that's just sophomore. That's something a grade school kid does. It shows he's not ready. You don't do that, especially if you get called on it and the lady from the department says, these seats are not for you, they're for the speakers, and you still do it. And then afterwards, he went and made a tape, which he put on his page, and he said, today was a great day in Memphis. We got a naming of a new bridge, the King's Crossing. It's blah, blah, blah. It's a great bridge. I'm so happy it's here. And I advocated for that bridge in the General Assembly and got $250 million from the state of Tennessee for that bridge. Do you know he voted against the bill that provided the funding? There was a Tennessee transportation bill. He voted against it. It passed 79-12.
Is that the bill that had the toll road? The toll.
It had toll roads in it. But if you choose to vote against it, you don't go out then and claim you advocated for, implying that you got $250 million. Activists advocate. Congresspeople vote.
Yeah. Would you? I want to get back to your successor. When you think about, if you retire from this seat, or the person who
there'll be a time I retire or I'm buried.
Yeah, or the person who comes.
I'll retire first.
Or the person who comes in after you in this seat. Like, what do you imagine? Like the person being sworn in. What do you imagine from that person? What type of person, what type of leader do you imagine filling the role?
I think it would be somebody who spent time in the state house and the state senate, has been effective in the state house and the state senate, has passed bills and has the respect of their colleagues, is a person who unites people and gets along with people, a person who might be African American and Indian descent. And I think that would be the type of person you'd look to see to succeed you.
Let me ask you a more direct question. Do you think, I mean, there's been two black men who've had this seat. You've had this seat. Would you support a woman in this, being a successor for you?
Well, as I was describing the person, it would be a woman, and
Well,
it'd be the first black woman in Memphis's history in the Congress. And when Marsha Blackburn, there's Diane Harshman, but she'd be a member of the Tennessee delegation, but she's the first black woman ever elected to Congress from this district. And I think that would be something historical, worthwhile, and important.
Yeah. Well, and you described you described a woman who's in the state senate now who came to mind as you was saying that. That's what made me ask you that question. But how hard is it hard for you to think about retirement? Do you ever?
Yes and no, because I've thought about retirement. Most people know I had polio when I was a child, and I was 5 years old, and I spent 3 months in the hospital with hot packs and all kind of things and treatments and whatever. And then I spent about 9 months learning to walk again on crutches and all that stuff. I did recover well. A lot of people died. But as I've gone on, there's something called post-polio syndrome. And I have that. 40% of people that polio have it. And what happens is your affected muscles kind of, because of their overuse over the years, atrophy. So I've got some pain in my left leg, and I've got some weakness in my left leg. And when I go to church sometimes, particularly church, and not just church, basketball games, but in church, you have to stand a lot. When the preacher talks, when the preacher prays, when the scripture's read, you're supposed to stand.
Especially if you're at a black church. If you're visiting a black church, there's going to be a lot of standing.
And so it gets to be difficult on me, and my left leg will start to shake and get weak, and I'll just have to try to stand up. If I'm in a second row, I can brace myself on the seat in front of me. If I'm in the first row, which I was the other night at Kojic, I just thought, this isn't a good place to be because I can't stand here. So I went in the back. So I've got a problem physically, and sometimes I've thought, do I want to keep doing this? Can I keep doing this? But it doesn't stop me from doing anything. Franklin Roosevelt got along without walking at all.
Well, so let me.
But my time is, I'm much, much, much closer to finishing my career, and I know that at 76, and with my bad leg, there's just so much time.
Let me ask you: will you? People were talking about how your opponent raised a pretty decent amount of money in a few days. Will you have the money and the stamina to take him on?
I will have the money. I've got $1.8 million in my fund.
You'll have the money then.
Yeah,
that's for sure.
And I'm going to raise more. I mean, people have sent me. I've got money just comes in. I hadn't had fundraisers in about 8 years.
Yeah.
So I'll have fundraisers and I'll raise money. I'll have the money. He got $1 million from one person, David Hogg, who's a 25-year-old graduate of Harvard who was at Parkland School. He wasn't in one of the classrooms where there was shootings and killings or on the corridor, but he was in this classroom and he heard the bullets go off, and was a great spokesman for anti-gun and gun legislation. He pledged him $1 million. Now, any person, that's more money for a state legislative race per ratio than Elon Musk gave Donald Trump for president. So you talk about somebody going in who's already encumbered, to somebody who gave him $1 million, and to the Justice Democrats, which is who's supporting him and basically did his press outlet and everything else, and they're behind him big time. He's going to have obligations to them too. So right now, we've got a congressperson who responds to the district, always has. Not to somebody from Florida that gave me $1 million, or to some group that's up in New York that put in the squad and is going to call his number.
If you were on the stage with your opponent right now, and the moderator gave you an opportunity to say something directly to your opponent, what would you say to him?
I don't want to say to him, because the truth is, I've always run on my record. For 10 terms, I've been elected. I've not lost a precinct and a reelect, even running against Mayor Willie Harrington, running against Tamika Hart, who was talented and smart, Ricky Wilkins, who some people thought was going to win. He had my former district director, Randy Wade, went over to him during the campaign, and a couple other people had, and he had all that going. He didn't win a precinct. So I've got a pretty good record, and I run on my record. Keep going with Cohen, and that's what it's about. If you've done well, if you've delivered and people know you, they're going to vote for you. If they don't, they're going to vote for somebody else. Not much to say to him, really. And maybe I shouldn't have gone into all those things about him, which I did here. I should just leave him alone. And probably I mostly will leave him alone. But the things he did were just, they hit me because I've always been for honesty. And for somebody to have the gall to put their chair up there after somebody told him you're not supposed to sit there, and then to get up and say he brought $250 million home when he voted against the bill, that's things that happen in high school.
Yeah. Let me ask you a final question. Are you looking forward to Hakeem Jeffries as Speaker of the House?
I love it. Hakeem's my friend, and it would be great to be Speaker, and it'll be a lot of people get gavels, and we will do oversight. And this president needs to be put in time out. Yeah. He needs oversight.
I'd say put in jail, but we'll take time out. We'll take time out for today. Before we go, is there any message that you'd like to share with our listeners, particularly those ones in the 9th Congressional District?
Well, just that it's going to be. We've got some tough times right now, and the SNAP payments being stopped. Now, the president didn't have to stop them, but he's doing it to hold the people hostage, to hold the Democrats hostage, and that's cruel, immoral, and it's what he's done. And he said, "I'm not going to do it until the Democrats give in." He's got the authority to have the SNAP payments in their EBT cards and have people get SNAP, and it's 30-something million people, and in my district, it's 700,000 people. That's a big deal, and they will. Children and seniors and veterans, people with disabilities will go without food. So there's going to be some tough times. There'll be tough times in general because the big, beautiful bill, which we call the big ugly bill, cut Medicaid, which hurts poor people that need the health care the most. It raises those ACA premiums that we're holding out for on this shutdown. It's going to increase cost 30% on average to people for their ACA premiums. A lot of people, there's a poll I saw the other day, said 40% of the people that lose their premiums said they would just go without insurance. Well, what does that do to our emergency rooms? What does that do to our healthcare system? It's just going to be awful. Rural hospitals will close. Nursing homes will close. People will die. And that's what you will have with Trump. I mean, Trump doesn't care about people. He cares about himself, his wealth, his family's wealth. He is a greedy, narcissistic, homophobic racist.
I couldn't have spoke those words any better. I know I told you I had one. That was my last question, but I do have another question. I was sitting here thinking. I was at the Germantown Democratic Club's mayoral forum last night, and you've been on the county commission. You've been in county government. I won't put you on the spot, but do you have a preference? Do you have a favorite candidate so far in this primary for county mayor?
I've stayed out of it because I'm on the ballot too. It's probably best to stay out of it. McKell Lowry's friend with me, and his family was friends with me, and I was close to Myron. I endorsed J.B. Smiley when he ran for governor. Melvin Burgess's father was at the police department when I was there. I was a police attorney. I was always get along with Butch, and Melvin Burgess was my friend. Harold Collins, Christmas parade. I guess I've done something with the Kuhn girl too.
I got it. Well, thank you, Congressman, for being here. Thank you for taking the time out your schedule, especially with everything that's happening in Washington right now, to be here and to be a part of the show and to be a guest on the show. And as we get closer to the 2026 election and the primaries, hopefully you'll come back and we'll have some more conversations. We'll see if your mind has changed any, or if the president's mind has changed any, if you all have been able to have a kumbaya moment.
I thought about that for a minute, and I thought there's no way I can have a kumbaya moment with that. The man is the most despicable man in the world. I don't want to have anything to do with him. I've never met him. I will not want to meet him. And I just, what could you have with him? He's a liar. he's a liar, and he doesn't care about. He's just into making money. He's over there with the Saudis in the gutter. He's getting a $400 million airplane. He wants to put in his museum. He wants to keep it. It's not his to keep, but he's already said he's going to keep it. Tears down the east wing of the White House. Wants to put up an Arc de Triomphe so people will see him. He thinks he's some kind of Napoleon.
Yeah. A sad state of affairs for our country right now. But I think good people will ensure that our democracy stays intact. I'll always like to say to the listeners that, democracy is like a work shift. Protecting this democracy is like working a shift. If you don't show up for it, then the work doesn't get done and we lose it. But if you're willing to at least show up and work part of the shift, even if that means us working half shifts. If we're willing to show up and work some of the shifts, then we can do the work to protect the democracy.
Well, I saw something where Elie Wiesel, who was a Holocaust survivor and a great leader throughout his life, and he said, despair can never be the answer. You always must have hope. And it's the same thing with the democracy. You can't give up. You have to keep having hope and going strong. And as I look at George Washington there, the founding fathers had a democracy, checks and balances. They didn't imagine Donald Trump. Yeah. If they would have, they'd had some extra sections in there.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Congressman.
You're welcome.
And to all of you who are listening to this podcast, who are watching on YouTube, make sure you like, subscribe. Make sure you research and learn more about Congressman Cohen. If you support him, make sure you share this video and share this conversation that we had. If you don't support him, well, too bad. We're still doing this video and this podcast is still out there. But as always, remember that you have the power to make the difference in our country. And it's you standing up, using your voice, using your power at the voting booth to truly reclaim the power that the MAGA party and this Republican president think that they have taken from us. Be critical, be involved, be engaged, and never stop asking the hard questions of those who have stepped up to lead us. This is Politics Unfiltered, and I'm out.